Welcome to Sew Very Easy. My name is Laura, and I like to have an additional cutting system right beside my sewing machine. I do have a large cutting mat and a large surface to cut with large rulers because I'm cutting large pieces. I'm cutting long lengths, but when I get to my sewing machine, I don't have that much space. So I like to have a smaller system. I like to have a rotary cutter just for beside that machine, a little mat and a little ruler. So this way I'm going to be able to trim the fabric that I need, trim off dog ears, and put my endings of my binding together. So today I'm going to share some of the things that I like to do while sitting beside my machine. And I'm going to use Krista's rotary cutter, and it comes with a blade, and there's some bonus blades too, so we don't have to worry about buying some extra blades. She also has a 7-inch mat and a 5-inch ruler. Now I love 5-inch rulers because this is the size that I like to cut my scraps with, and that way I have my 5-inch charm packs already made for me, so if I do see a scrappy project coming up, I'm able to use it. So to the right of my machine, I do have some drawers, and there I like to have extra sewing machine needles, a mat, a ruler, and the extra cutter. And that way it's right here for me. So this little mat really fits good right by my sewing machine. And it's especially good if I'm going to make scrappy quilts. And here's an example of a scrappy quilt, and this is a free pattern also from Krista's Quilts. And the pieces are all the same, so the scraps are going to work out great. And we need to start with 2.5-inch strips. So I'll take my 2.5-inch strips and I'll go through and I'll match two that I like. So right here at the machine, I'm going to be able to trim them down because I'm only going to do one block at a time. I am using the rotary cutter that has that built-in safety. So no matter where it falls, I'm not worried about it. That blade cover moves out of the way when I'm cutting. If I want, I can move it out of the way and lock it out of the way. But because I'm beside the machine, I definitely want that safety on. Now the block sizes are 2.5 inches by 4.5 inches. So I can trim off of those edges. I have those two matching colors together. They need to be 4.5 inches. The ruler is 5 inches, so that makes it easy. And I can cut the one piece, the next. Now I can go to the machine and sew this and make that one block and put this in with the rest because I'm going to be able to just pick up and make one block at a time and just match everything randomly. And I could do that right here. So when I sew my blocks together, this is that great scrap buster block. You can see it be great in two colors, but it definitely is a good scrap buster. Trimming my half square triangles right at the machine definitely saves some time. Cutting off dog ears and squaring up my blocks also is handy right by my machine. And of course, cutting my edges so that my binding can come to an end. There are many different ways of doing this, but I'll share one way that I like to do mine. I have lots of space between those two edges that need to be joined. Put a cutting mat in between that quilt and your binding. This top binding, open it up and cut at a 45-degree angle. And that 45-degree angle you're going to want in that center of the opening. On the cut edge, I do want to draw 1/4 inch. So that's my first edge. I'm going to take that second edge and open it up. I do like to put a pin right here at the edge just to keep that binding flat for me because it will want to flip over. So that's going to lay flat. That piece that I've cut, I'm going to lay over top and make sure this stays flat. So I'm having that cut piece over top of the other piece. Line up those edges, and then I'm just going to put a few marks right along that cut edge. So I know I have that angle that I want. Now from those marks, I'm going to cut up a 1/2 inch. Here's a close-up where I've just attached the binding onto paper. And that way you can see really clearly without the beautiful distraction of the fabric. So this is the first one. We've cut, we've done that 1/4 inch seam allowance. The bottom one, we're going to place on top, line up those edges, and that cut edge is where we're going to put those marks. Fold back that top. Now from those marks, we're going to cut over the 1/2 inch. So there's that 1/2 inch mark. I am going to use the guides of the ruler and cut. So we now have the same angle. Both fabrics, I'm looking at the wrong side. When we match up those edges, you can see where we have that perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance, and this is remaining flat. And you can use that first line that you drew on the top to make sure that you have that little point lining up. This is going to line up at the one side and line up on the second side. So you can follow that line and stitch. Once that's stitched, right here, I'm just going to finger press that seam open. That fold line matches up, and I end up with that nice diagonal seam. So I now am going to be able to finish stitching that on. Just one more way to finish those edges. And of course, with the small mat, we can always take that and place it on top of our big mat, place our ruler over, and we're going to be able to cut that fabric out by turning this mat on top of the other mat. So we're going to be able to cut all the way around, sort of like a miniature rotary cutting mat. I'm sure there are many more things that we can use these small mats and rulers and cutters, not only by our machine, but on our big surface. They're great for traveling, and they're definitely handy to have that little extra. I do hope that gives you some hints and tips on using little things so that we can trim things and put things together by our sewing machine. Thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I do have a newsletter. It's all under Sew Very Easy. Thanks for joining me. Bye for now.